let's chat about Monster Hunter real quick. So, Monster Hunter Wilds is out in beta this week. If you had PS Plus, you got like some early access. Otherwise, it was like open to everyone, I think, this weekend. So, by the time you're hearing this, I think it will be done. I think it will be closed
Am
by
I
then.
am I wrong in thinking that there'll be another one next week? Are there
Oh,
two?
it
Maybe
maybe
not.
I might be wrong. I can double check that quickly. But in any case, this is a beta for Monster Hunter, the big new Monster Hunter coming out next year. I think they said early next year, like
It's
Feb
Feb,
next
yeah,
year.
it's Feb next
Yeah,
year.
so it's not that far away. It's like
No.
three or so months away, and this beta is kind of just an introduction to the opening, the first few hunts, and just
Mm.
a sort of like feel of what weapon do you think you'll gravitate towards, and what small new things are in Wilds that might expand out
Mm.
into the greater story. So you're a Monster Hunter sicko. So how has your time been? Oh, by the way, the beta's only for this weekend. So
Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought it was for like this weekend and next weekend. I thought I thought you were talking about in game, like you're a Monster Hunter sicker. Like, yeah, you are, because in all the games you just archer to ruin
I
the
mean,
lives of these
true, but
monsters.
both are true. Both are absolutely true. You are just killing these poor little creatures that weren't even attacking you, and you are
No,
making some sick armor out of their heads. I don't know.
it's laughable. The theme of today's episode is just close your eyes, don't look, don't pay attention to the story. You just
Yeah.
the gameplay. No, so you say I'm a Monster Hunter sicko. The reality is that uh, I had not played a Monster Hunter till Monster Hunter Rise on the Switch, which is the
Mm-hmm.
last main entry game, and that is where the bug bit me. And I played over 100 hours on Switch, and then the game launched on PC, and I thought, am I going to do this again? And I did, in fact, do it again. Put 100 hours into that. Put a lot of
God
time into the
damn.
expansion, and I'm a Monster Hunter boy now. Where yeah, so Wilds is interesting to me because I missed, for context, Monster Hunter Rise launched on the Switch, which means that it launched with the limitations of the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
It came to PC, but all that changed was that it got a new coat of paint, HD textures and whatever. But because it ran on the Switch, it was very different to World. I think it was more, it focused more on like, hunts can be done in like bite-sized sessions, like 15 to 30 minutes. You choose a hunt, you teleport to like a little arena, and you do the hunt, whatever. I have no idea how World is structured, but I'm very excited to see what a quote unquote main entry of Monster Hunter is. The next one is, because I miss World, and now this is coming out on modern day consoles, which means there'll be like bigger environments, bigger worlds, bigger monsters, whatever it is. There's no restrictions or limitations of the Switch. I'm very keen to dive into Wilds, and just playing the beta, like you said, you get access to literally the prologue. You get a bit of story, and then they say, "Cool, you can just roam around, go hunt a couple of monsters in this beta," and it feels good. Like, I think from the get go, in Monster Hunter Rise, I vibed with the longsword, and picking it up here,
Mm-hmm.
it feels identical. Like, it's funny because I've said to you, I've played over 200 hours of Monster Hunter, but every time I've picked up a controller, I'm like, oh my god, there's so many button presses. Like, it is
Yeah.
a high skill setting to get into this game, but when it gets you, it gets you. But coming back in now, I was like, damn, I can't remember how to like do this stuff. Like, I kept putting my weapon away, and I couldn't remember how to sprint. So if you're watching the footage now, this is the first time I'm controlling the character, and it looks a bit rough, maybe. Like, I'm not playing as smooth as one would. But what I'm getting at is that once it did click, like, oh yeah, this is a longsword. It's got the same move sets. I know how the mechanic works, and obviously there are new things that I still need to figure out. Like, there are new moves that I was doing, which it may be more just by accident, not so much me going, oh, I know exactly how I'm going to pull this off.
Mm.
But what's quite cool with Wilds is that I think it's a new system. I think Wilds did have, like, monsters could get wounded.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure if that was in World, but I don't remember that from Rise
It
at
in
all.
Raz it was in Raz only. I think with the expansion they added, there was what is it? It was called like Blight or something, where parts of the monster's body would glow, if I recall, and if you
Yeah.
attack that part, it would like do a chunk of damage. So what they've done now is they've kind of like streamlined it a bit, or kind of brought the two together, where you get a focus mode in Monster Hunter Wilds where it almost lets you have like a reticle. So you're watching the footage now. It lets me choose exactly where I'm going to attack. And you see when I go into the focus mode, it highlights wounds on the monster. So if you're able to target that wound specifically, you'll do like a special attack and do a lot of damage. Like that's just an interesting new thing where, you know, it adds a little bit of a new dynamic to hunts where you kind of want to wound the creature and then obviously focus on those wounds. It also lets you, because you get the little reticle, it lets you aim a little bit better. Whereas I know, I mean, you've played Monster Hunter, sometimes the camera can be a bit unwieldy. You're fighting more with the camera than the actual monster. Like, there's nothing worse than pulling off a combo and then it just happens you're not able to finish it correctly because the monster like is behind you or the camera's just not working with you. From my understanding, based on this beta and playing with the focus mode, you can sort of aim exactly you want to attack, and you can pull it up at any moment. It's not tied to a resource, so that's like a nice little thing you can do.
Yeah, it's more like accuracy at the expense of like damage, because it doesn't seem like you're doing a ton when you're aiming through that reticle.
No, I mean, you can do your same moveset, right? But what you're trying to do ultimately with that focus mode is see if the monster has any wounds that you can exploit.
Points,
yeah. I mean, you can even see the tutorial there saying like aim for the wounds to do more damage.
I can see how like off-putting this game can be for some, because I'm watching the footage and I know what's going on, but I'm looking at all the things on screen, all the prompts. I'm like,
100%. I mean,
it's overwhelming.
It is overwhelming, and I think a large part of why you and I got into Monster Hunter was because we did work for Nintendo where we had to create guides. There's a thing of like, we pitched like, we'll do a guide for Monster Hunter, and they're like, okay, cool. We're like, what? You actually want us to?
Yes. Oh,
okay.
Like, so big surprise.
Yeah. So there's a thing of like, oh shit. Okay, like we got to learn this game, you know, because you can't make a bloody guide if you don't know anything.
Oh, of course, yeah. Oh, the insect glaive. This is where you summon insects.
Yeah, it's like
run around with the glaive. Yeah.
Like, do these people know how this game works? So that was the thing of like, in us learning the game, that's when it clicks. It's like, oh shit, like I've learned this game's clicked for me. I really enjoy this and I want to play more of it. And I think what's so interesting is that Monster Hunter's been around for a long time. I mean, for decades at this point. And World was that breakout moment for it where I don't know, I never played World, but I think that was just a game that a lot of people clicked with and went, oh shit, like Monster Hunter is really good. A lot of people,
still like one of the best-selling Capcom games of all time.
Yeah, that if I'm not mistaken, was one of the turning points for Capcom, or around the turning point for Capcom.
It was that game that started the momentum. Yeah, because it was World, and then it was RE7, and then like it just didn't stop from there. You know.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people from a lot of World players skipped Rise because they thought, you know, it's like a Switch game. It's not quite the quote unquote main Monster Hunter entry. Whereas this is now with all the bells and whistles of, you know, the modern sensibilities of a Monster Hunter. And it's a beta, so obviously there's still a lot to like learn and see, but it feels good. Like it's funny that I did the first hour, like I did the mission they give you, and then I put it off, and the next day I was like, yeah, I want to go back and just, you know, I want to go back and see.
Again.
Yeah, I want to go back and, you know, get the feel for my longsword. And I did. Like, it came back and I started figuring out, yeah, there's new combos you can do, some new things you can do. What's quite cool, though, is that I think I had to do some research because, again, never played World, so I can't tell you what the huge one-on-one differences are to that game. But I did not know that World did not have mounts until Iceborne. Rise had mounts.
The expansion, yeah.
Yeah. But what's cool is that you get a creature called the Secret, which is a mount that you can get on during fights. So, for example, if you've taken damage, you can get on your mount, run away, you know, have a potion, come back, leap off, carry on fighting. What's quite cool is that in Monster Hunter games, you don't just walk into arena and then fight the monster. Like it's a tiered thing where You fight the monster for a bit, then eventually it moves to another location you have to pursue.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an important time because that's when you sharpen your weapon, you replenish your health. What's quite cool is that they've streamlined that. You can jump on your mount. You can move around freely if you want to, or you can just say, hey, can you just get me to the monster? And while that's happening, that's where you can, do your stuff, sharpen your weapon, get your health up. Your secret has, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Secret.
I think it's sacred. Yeah. Listen, I saw the spelling and I was like, yeah, that seems right.
It's a something. It's got its own stash. You can replenish supplies if you need to. And interestingly, and I think this is from Mold, you can keep a second weapon. I could be wrong, but I think you can. You've got access to a second weapon, which I was saying to you when I first saw.
It's interesting, yeah.
I was like, why would you need a second weapon? Until I did some reading, and people saying, well, you can, for example, use a ranged weapon from your mount. So when the monster flees, which it often does, you can still do some damage to it as it's running away. Or you can keep two of the same weapon and you can bounce between different affinities, Arrive at the
that's actually a pretty good point. Yeah, because you can have two long swords that are just, upgraded in different ways.
Yeah. So you arrive at the fight,
smart.
poison the monster, get on your mount, pull out your other weapon, your main longsword that does more crits, for example. So there'll be depth there, I have no doubt.
You don't want to run into a fight and then, as you arrive there, you realize, the monster is quite immune or resistant to the affinity that you've chosen. Now you have to back out of the
You've got a
hunt.
second weapon to fall back on.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. I didn't think of it in that way because I think my head was going immediately towards the idea of, you have a long sword or you have a sword and shield, and those two weapons are so fundamentally different. Like, you're going to be spending a lot of time with one or the other, not bouncing between them. So, yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I do miss I know the mount is really cool. I love the wire bug from Monster Hunter Rise. I just love the mobility it gave you. But, I mean, given that you're fighting in, a desert, at least for the beta here, it wouldn't have worked. Yeah, there's no way.
No, I think one of the big things in Rise was there was a level of verticality. Like, they did want you to climb up hills and. I mean, and I wouldn't rule it out. I think that was that game's thing. I think every Monster Hunter has a mechanic or a unique thing. Maybe they bring it back in, the expansion year, or we see it in a future game. I don't think it's gone forever. But it is interesting because I'm with you. I love the wire bug. And even having not played another Monster Hunter, I thought, how could Monster Hunter exist before this wire bug? It just changes the way the game's played, where you have to be a bit more thoughtful of, how do you move? How do you navigate fighting this monster without the ability to just eat away on your wire bug?
Or use it to get high up and come down on them on their head, especially with the longsword. Felt really, really good.
But
it's a good. It looks good. It feels good. I think I was telling you, it's such a weird game because you have to get back into this idea of such purposeful button presses. It's very tempting to just mash on R2 on the longsword, for instance, to do your spirit blade moves. But if you just do that, you miss out on all the other combos you can do if you just are patient with the animation times and all of that. So it's good. I will say, we spoke about it, and I think we're not the only ones to say this game on performance mode, at least on PS5, looks rough.
The game's only 3 months away, and I think you have some optimization to do.
It's weird because this is the RE engine, which we know is so
amazing,
good in terms of detail and performance, but I don't think we've seen the engine in this sort of setting where it is a much more open world-ish sort of game. Whereas you look at it in Resident Evil, it's very corridor driven, not open world at all. And so maybe that's just a limitation of the engine that they're brushing up against and struggling with it. But yeah, I mean, I played on the quality resolution mode and it looks better. Doesn't look, fun, way better. But then the hit on the frame rate and the input latency is just so big for this sort of game that I just think you have to play this on a performance mode. And in that mode, it just does not look good.
No.
And I don't know how much they can change between now and launch.
Yeah, it honestly is I said that somebody smeared Vaseline on the screen. Like it's that
Mm.
drastic where you launch, you're like, oof, like
Yeah.
it looks like I'm playing at like 720p, for example. Like it just
And this is something I don't even think the PS5 Pro could really address, because like I said, the resolution mode looks better, but it still doesn't look fantastic, you know. So even if
No.
you have the Pro that pushes that quality mode up to 60 frames per second, you know, it's still, I don't know, this game just doesn't look like the sort of thing you'd expect from the engine that everyone has been talking so highly of, you
Yeah.
know, for good reason when it comes to Resident Evil and the
Mm.
Dead Rising remake that was you know, recently put out. So it's a pity. But I also think that, you know, Monster Hunter Rise had its issues on the Switch because it was really pushing that console to the limit in terms of what it could do visually, and that game was locked to 30, and we still had a fantastic time with that game.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a make or break. It's just surprising, put it that way, given you know, the engine's popularity and repertoire since now.
Yeah.
Just doesn't it doesn't look as good as I would have hoped. put it that way.
100%, yeah.
But that's out. What, February?
Feb.
I think it's end of February. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I've already
I-
said
I
to
posted
Lenska she's
that
not
now.
going to see me.
How does she feel about that? That seems like a very pointed demand that
We
you
haven't
can't really
spoke-
make.
We haven't spoken in weeks.
Oh, really? Sure. Okay, so you're practicing in the meantime.
I thought, excellent. Monster Hunter. I'm speaking shit.
Yeah. Soon there's going to be weak points on you as you get beaten out the door.
100%. But yeah, I'm very keen for it. To me, it's a no-brainer. Like I would happily take more Monster Hunter, and I hope, again, like 3 months is not a long time to address things. What can they do? I don't know. Even I've heard on PC that the requirements are stupidly high. I will find you Reddit posts. I've laughed at some of the posts I've seen, like this game on low detail on PC, where the monsters and the hunters look just like polygonal blocks. Like this monster appears as just like a mesh of triangles together. You're like,
Incredible.
what is going on here?
Incredible.
Capcom, how did this happen? Yeah.
It is in Wilds where there's the option to turn spiders into green blobs.
Mm-hmm.
There's like an arachnophobia mode. I'm going to do that just to see it, because I need to know how that looks. I mean, I did it in
Grounded.
what was that game? Grounded, yeah.
Mm.
And they looked ridiculous, and I really enjoyed that. So
Yeah,
I might do
these
that,
little
yeah.
blobs.
Mhm,
Amazing.
mhm, mhm. Is Grounded still a thing? Is that game still going?
It's still going. I mean, I think
Sure.
it still gets regular updates. That's one of those games I played in beta as well, and I enjoyed it. But when it
Yeah,
launched,
same.
I was just like,
I think I played with you and
Yeah.
John Michael, and we got to the end of the story content, and we were like, cool, we'll come back to this, and just never did.
Never did.
Yeah.
Hate to see it.
Cool. That is Monster Hunter Wilds. I feel like there's always like a fourth word in that name that I'm missing, but it's just Wilds. It's not like
No,
the Wilds or.
just.
But I guess the
Wilds.
others have been World, Rise,
Yeah.
Wilds. Next one's going to be Tame. I don't know. Who knows? You can say.